Hey guys, welcome back to Beyond the Box Score. I'm your host Hayat. Today we're breaking down multiple college basketball matchups on February 13th. We're talking momentum, revenge angles, rivalry games, travel spots, inflated spreads, close game patterns, all of it. No narratives for clicks, no blind stat reading, just real breakdowns of how these games could realistically unfold if they play out the way the situations suggest. This is analysis and opinion only. Nothing guaranteed, just connecting the dots the way I see them. Let's lock in and get into it. Michigan versus Wisconsin. The lean here is Wisconsin Badgers money line. Let me walk through why. If this matchup plays out like what I've been watching the last few weeks, I don't understand how I'm not landing on Wisconsin Badgers money line. And I'll be honest with you, I've been pretty critical of this Wisconsin team this season, especially early in the season. I did not trust them, I questioned them, I faded them in their last game. I liked Illinois in that one. I thought Illinois was going to take them behind the woodshed, I really did, and I was wrong. Sometimes you've got to adjust when the data smacks you in the face. What connects for me is what Wisconsin has actually done on the floor, not what I thought they were. Wisconsin beat Michigan outright on the road. And Michigan, in this transcript, is described as the best team in the country. So let's just pause there. If this matchup plays out like it has when Wisconsin steps up in competition, they've already gone on the road and beaten the team that's described as the best team in the country. That matters to me. That's not theoretical. That happened. And then they go on the road into Illinois. They were 9.5-point dogs in that Illinois game. 9.5. That's not a small number. That's the market saying, we don't believe in you. And what did Wisconsin do? Wisconsin won that Illinois game outright. Not only did they win it outright, Wisconsin scored 92 in that Illinois game. 92, on the road, as 9.5-point dogs. That's not fluky. That's not surviving. That's imposing. And let's not forget the game before Illinois. At Indiana. Wisconsin lost to Indiana by 1 point. 1 point. And that Indiana loss went to overtime. So if this matchup plays out like Wisconsin's recent form suggests, they're a couple of possessions from being on an absolute heater. They lost by 1 point in overtime, and there were questionable calls at the end of the Indiana game. So you're talking about margins this thin, this tight, and instead of spiraling, they respond by going on the road into Illinois as 9.5-point dogs and winning outright, putting up 92. That's a team that's locked in. Now, while recording this, it looks like Michigan State is laying 1.5 points in this game. Michigan State minus 1.5. That's the number. And I kind of understand it from a respect standpoint because Michigan State is coming off a win against Illinois. But here's where I start thinking out loud. Wisconsin beat Illinois on the road. Michigan State is coming off a win against Illinois, sure, but Wisconsin did that on the road into Illinois as 9.5-point dogs and scored 92. And we're still giving me Michigan State minus 1.5. We're still telling me Wisconsin is an underdog at home. If this matchup plays out like the transitive results suggest, Wisconsin beat Michigan outright on the road. Michigan is described as the best team in the country. Michigan State lost to Michigan by double-digit points. And that Michigan State lost to Michigan was at home. So Wisconsin beats Michigan outright on the road, and Michigan State loses to Michigan by double-digit points at home, and now while recording, Michigan State is laying 1.5 points. Michigan State minus 1.5. You're going to give me 1.5 points. You're gonna give me Wisconsin at an underdog price. One path I see here is simple. Wisconsin is playing some damn good ball. They're coming off that outright win at Illinois as 9.5-point dogs, scoring 92. Before that, a 1-point overtime loss at Indiana with questionable calls at the end. Before that, beating Michigan outright on the road, the team described as the best team in the country. That's not smoke. That's not hype. That's results. And I said it earlier in the season, I was critical, I faded them, I liked Illinois, I thought Illinois was going to take them behind the woodshed. I was wrong. So now, when the market is still giving me Michigan State minus 1.5 and effectively telling me Wisconsin is an underdog at home, I have to adjust. If this matchup plays out like Wisconsin's current level suggests, I don't think they should be an underdog at home in this spot. I would probably set this game at pick'em, or Wisconsin minus 1.5. That's where my number lands. So if the actual number while recording is Michigan State minus 1.5, and you're giving me a 1.5, and you're giving me Wisconsin at an underdog price. What connects for me is grabbing the team that's already beaten the best team in the country outright on the road, that just won outright at Illinois is 9.5-point dogs scoring 92, that lost by 1 point in overtime at Indiana with questionable calls at the end. Yeah, I've adjusted. I've learned. And in this spot, with Michigan State minus 1.5 on the board, the lean sticks at Wisconsin Badgers money line. Ohio headed into Oxford, Ohio to play Miami of Ohio. The lean here is Ohio to cover the spread. Let me walk through why. If this matchup plays out like Miami of Ohio's season has gone so far, I understand why the numbers tell you to take Miami of Ohio. They're the last undefeated team in the country, they're 24-0, and they're 15-6 ATS. That's not just winning games, that's cashing tickets. That's a team you can trust with your money. I was on Miami of Ohio in their last game against Marshall. I love them in that spot versus Marshall. I've been there with this team. But what connects for me here isn't just 24-0 or 15-6 ATS. It's how they've gotten there. Miami of Ohio has played in a ton of close games. The game against Kent State was close. They played Buffalo very close. They needed a buzzer beater to beat Buffalo in their first meeting. The UMass game was very close as well. Buffalo twice. Kent State. UMass. These aren't blowouts. These are coin flip type finishes that happen to go their way. And look, I know sharper people in the industry are looking to sell high on this Miami of Ohio team. A lot of them have been fading this Miami of Ohio team. I think that's a good strategy, but only in certain spots. They're not covering every game, even though they're 15-6 ATS. So the market is still respecting them. The numbers tell you to take Miami of Ohio. Can pump numbers. Nothing tells you to take Ohio. I'm going to be real about that. Nothing tells you to take Ohio in this game. The numbers tell you to take Miami of Ohio. But if this matchup plays out like the pattern of these close games suggests, then I start seeing a different path. These teams definitely don't like each other. This game means more, especially for Ohio. Miami of Ohio is going to get Ohio's best ball. One path I see here is emotional edge plus rivalry plus inflated number. The spot is described as having too many points. The spread is described as a bit too big. And when I zoom out, I'm not asking Ohio to win the game outright. I just think they can keep it in single digits. If this game is closer than the spread, like I believe it will be, then Ohio keeping it in single digits gives us a cover. And that's the key. Miami of Ohio has been in these tight games before. Kent State close, Buffalo very close with a buzzer beater in the first meeting, UMass very close, so why can't this be another one of those? Yes, Miami of Ohio is 24-0. Yes, they're 15-6 ATS. Yes, the numbers tell you to take Miami of Ohio. But what connects for me is the situational angle. Rivalry game. Road team with something to prove. Sharper people looking to sell high. A team that has lived dangerously in close games. And I just think the spread is a bit too big. So if Ohio keeps this in single digits, which I believe they can, that's our cover. Yeah, the lean sticks at Ohio to cover the spread. UNLV headed into Boise, Idaho to play Boise State. The lean here is Boise State to lay the points in a revenge spot. Let me walk through why. This one is tricky. Boise State is laying a pretty big number. And I'm going to be honest, I think it's too many points. I don't love this game. I don't love this game at all. UNLV is not good. I think we can all agree on that. But the verdict is still out on Boise State. I don't think this team is that great. I don't think they're a top-tier team in the Mountain West. And we're about to enter middle of February and I still don't know if Boise State is good or not. That's where I'm at with them. My heart tells me they're not that good. But if this matchup plays out like recent form and situational edges suggest, I start leaning a different direction. Boise State is coming off two fantastic wins. They beat Nevada. They were 6.5-point favorites versus Nevada and won that game. Then they went into the pit in their last game, played New Mexico, and won that one outright. That's back-to-back confidence builders. Meanwhile, UNLV is coming off back-to-back wins at home. Now they're traveling on the road into Idaho. And Idaho is not an easy place to play at all. And we have to talk about the previous meeting. These teams already played. It was at UNLV on January 13th. UNLV was catching 2.5 points in that game. UNLV ended up winning that game outright. UNLV has a win over Boise State. So if this matchup plays out like revenge spots typically do, I see a motivated Boise State team. I'm going to stick with my systems here. I like the revenge angle. Even though I think it's too many points. Even though I don't love this Boise State team. Even though I don't think they're top tier in the Mountain West. One path I see here is Boise State using that January 13th loss, when UNLV was catching 2.5 points and won outright, as fuel. Combine that with coming off wins over Nevada as 6.5-point favorites and a road win at New Mexico in the pit, and now you're back home in Boise, Idaho, where it's not an easy place to play. UNLV not being a good team, traveling after back-to-back wins at home, that's a tough adjustment spot. So yeah, I'm conflicted because I think it's too many points and I don't fully trust Boise State. But if I had to bet it, I'm laying the points. I'm sticking with the revenge angle. I'm taking Boise State in a revenge spot. And that's why the lean sticks at Boise State to lay the points in a revenge spot. Quick pause, if you've got an even one lean that made you think a little differently about a game, hit the like button. That tells me these full slate, deep dive breakdowns are worth grinding through. And if you're new here and you like this messy, thinking out loud style where we actually work through the numbers instead of just shouting picks, hit subscribe. It takes a second for you, but it genuinely means a lot for the channel and helps beyond the box score grow. Alright, let's get back into this and our next game, Loyola Chicago versus St. Louis. The lean here is St. Louis, and I'm going to roll with St. Louis. If this matchup plays out like the records say it should, this is a complete mismatch on paper. Loyola Chicago is 6-19 on the year, 2-10 in conference play, and they're coming off an 84-64 loss to Davidson. That's not a small margin, that's a 20-point loss, and when I zoom out, this is a team that has had moments, sure, but the consistency just isn't there. They did beat LaSalle by double digits in their last home game, so yes, there is at least one recent example of them defending their floor. But then I look at the step-up spots. They lost by 21 to St. Joe's. They lost by double digits at home against Duquesne. They lost to George Mason, kept it respectable, and they kept it close against Dayton, but that's kind of the theme here, respectable, close, competitive, not winning. Now flip it. St. Louis is 23-1 this season, 11-0 in conference play. That one loss. A 1-point loss to Stanford on a neutral floor, and in that game they led by as many as 15 in the first half. So if that game closes differently, we're talking about a 24-0 team coming in here. That matters to me because it tells me the ceiling is elite and the floor is still incredibly high. They just blew out LL 82-58. They've had a 3-point win over George Washington, a 4-point road win over Duquesne, and a nice road win over VCU. So yeah, there have been a couple of tighter spots, but they've handled the conference. They are 11-0 in conference play for a reason. What connects for me is the statistical profile. St. Louis is considered a top 25 team, and they're top 10 in 3-point shooting and top 10 in 2-point shooting. That's balance. That's efficiency at all three levels. And they play at breakneck speed, very fast pace. So if this game turns into a tempo battle, Loyola Chicago has to keep up with that. If the shots are not falling for Loyola Chicago, and we've seen them lose 84-64 to Davidson, lose by 21 to St. Joe's, lose by double digits at home against Duquesne, then how do they survive a team that can realistically hit the century mark? I mean, one path I see here is St. Louis pushing this thing into the 90s or even into triple digits. We literally have a hypothetical projection of 101-68. And when I look at 101-68, I don't flinch. That feels within range if the tempo explodes. Now I always ask, is there a look ahead? Because sometimes 23-1, 11-0 teams can drift. Next game is at Rhode Island. Following Friday they play at home in a rematch against VCU. So yes, those games are coming, but this is the first of two meetings this season versus Loyola Chicago, and I don't see a flat spot screaming at me. If this matchup plays out like the shooting splits say it should, top 10 in 3-point shooting, top 10 in 2-point shooting, breakneck speed, against a 6-19, 2-10 team that has been drilled in step-up spots, then I think the gap shows. I get it, it's a boatload of points if you're laying it, but would it shock me if this finishes something like 101-68? No. That's why the lean sticks at St. Louis. Now let's talk Akron versus UMass. The lean here is Akron laying the big number, and I'm rolling with Akron laying the big number. If this matchup plays out like the consistency trends say it will, I see two very different profiles. Akron is 19-5 on the year, 10-1 in conference play. Their lone conference defeat is a loss to Miami, Ohio, and they do not play Miami, Ohio, again this season, so there's no revenge angle coming. But outside of that, they've been the class of the conference, and I've even heard them described as the best mid-major program in college basketball. UMass. They're 15-10 this season, 6-6 in conference play, and yes, they've won 6 of last 8 conference games. So momentum-wise, there's something there. But then I dig into the margins. UMass has played so many close games. Margins of 6, 1, 3, 8, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 6, 3. That's not 1 or 2 coin flips, that's a pattern. That's living on the edge. They lost to Coastal Carolina in triple overtime. They beat Central Michigan 95-89. They have a win over Florida State. They played Miami, Ohio tough. So yes, they can compete. But here's the key, they are catching 13 points, around 13, 12. That's the range. And when I see UMass catching 13 points, around 13, 12, against a team that wins by 21, 13, 10, 15, 19, 21, I see a collision of styles. Akron lost to Troy 79-69, so they're not invincible. They knocked off Eastern Michigan. They had a 10-point win over Toledo, and it was even mentioned that they still covered that game. That matters. Because if they're winning by 10 and still covering, it tells me the market understands their level. They're top 25 in 3-point shooting and top 25 in 2-point shooting. They're shooting 76% from the line this season, and they're the best free throw shooting team in the MAC at 78.8%. And yes, they get there at the lowest rate, but here's where it flips, UMass is dead last defensively in allowing free throws. So if this matchup plays out like the efficiency says it should, Akron's 76% and 78.8% at the line meets a defense that is dead last defensively in allowing free throws. That's hidden separation. That's how you turn a 10-point game into 15, into 17. Akron's defense doesn't allow many free throws. That's really the only area where UMass has been able to do damage compared to the rest of the conference. So if UMass can't live at the line, and they're forced to win another 6, 1, 3, 8, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 6, 3 type game, but this time against a team that wins by 21, 13, 10, 15, 19, 21, I just think the math tilts. It's the only meeting between Akron and UMass this season, so urgency should be there. Akron is 10-1 in conference play. They've only stumbled once to Miami, Ohio. UMass is 6-6 in conference play. If this matchup plays out like the shooting splits, the free throw percentages, and the margin trends suggest, I think Akron separates late. It's a big number, yes, 13, around 13, 12, but I trust the team that wins by 21 and 19 more than the team that lives in 3 and 2 and 1. That's why the lean sticks at Akron laying the big number. Alright, that wraps up all the February 13th college basketball matchups of my video. Again, this is analysis and opinion only, nothing promised, nothing guaranteed. Just me walking through the angles and figuring out how these games might play out if the spots connect the way they look on paper. Now I want to hear from you. Drop a Z in the comments and tell me which matchup you're locking in on, or if you're fading one of my leans completely. I read all of it. More breakdowns coming soon, same raw energy, same deep dives, same beyond the box score style. Let's keep building.